Well, Jesse Ventura is a former US Navy SEAL, a former professional wrestler, a former actor, and a former governor of Minnesota. We've had many memorable interviews over the years. I'm pleased to say he joins me again now. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing good, Piers. It's been a long time for you and I.
It
tried
has.
to retire, but, I tried to retire, but unfortunately, they sent the Gestapo to my high school and they hit it with chemical weapons, which are a war crime. And that brought me back out of retirement to stand up against the war criminal in the White House.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I really do appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out. Before we get into everything, please make sure to hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe, and smash that notification. It's a quick, easy, and free way to help the channel grow as big as possible. So, something came across my little news feed earlier, and it was Jesse Ventura criticizing Baron Trump. And what it's for is it doesn't make any sense, right? Because he's telling him that he should have enlisted in the military, unlike his father, who's a draft dodger, yet he's not a proponent of war. So if you're not a proponent of war and you don't like war, why are you telling somebody to sign up for a draft? It doesn't make any sense. So like I said, he was on Piers Morgan. I think this was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Jesse Ventura
Sorry about that. Yeah, yesterday. So, I didn't listen to all of this yet, but I heard some of it, and I think Jesse's just taking one too many headshots to the brain. But let's check this out. I want to watch this.
Well, Jesse Ventura is a former US Navy SEAL, a former professional wrestler, a former actor, and a former governor of Minnesota. We've had many memorable interviews over the years. I'm pleased to say.
Go figure, Minnesota.
He joins me again now. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing good, Piers. It's been a long time for you and I.
It has.
Tried to retire, but, I tried to retire, but unfortunately, they sent the Gestapo to my high school and they hit it with chemical weapons, which are a war crime. And that brought me back out of retirement to stand up against the war criminal in the White House.
Wow. Well, that sounds suitably dramatic.
Wow, dude. Oh my gosh, he really has taken too many chair shots to the head. Really? A Gestapo war criminal? Come on, dude. You're falling into that libtard propaganda about Trump that's been going on since 2016. It's insane. This is not a Gestapo. I don't understand his train of thought or where he gets his concepts from.
Well, that's the way it happened. I mean, I was retired. I hadn't watched the news since the last election. My son said, "You're way better, Dad. You're not tense anymore. Keep it up." And then lo and behold, these ICE characters, I call them the Gestapo, and I think I can do that. And let me get something straight right now, Piers, so people know where I'm coming from. My uncle Emil fought in World War I. My parents both fought in World War II. My father had 6 bronze battle stars in Europe. My mother was a nurse in North Africa, which predated Normandy, fighting Rommel, the Desert Fox, the greatest German general.
And we thank you and your family for your military service.
Both my parents were World War II veterans. My brother and I are both Vietnam veterans and member of the Navy UDT SEAL. We both did 2 tours to Southeast Asia. So everyone in my family is a war veteran. I wanted to get that out right now so it'll help with the things that I'm going to say.
Come on, just because you're a war veteran, that doesn't mean you just get to say something and then it means it's absolutely ultimately right. Just because you're a war vet, that doesn't give you a leadway or give you an allowance to say whatever you want and we have to believe what you're saying just because you're a war vet. No, that's just not how it works.
Say to you in the moments to come.
So ICE agents came to your school, you said?
What's that?
You said the ICE agents came to your school.
Yeah, the ICE agents came to the school where I went to high school, chasing some guy down just like the Gestapo. And I heard people were offended calling them that. Really? I can tell you right now, if my parents would have been alive and they would have seen what happened in Minneapolis, they would have called it the Gestapo too.
So is it the Gestapo with all the fraud and criminal activity going on there, with all the Somalians frauding the state? Is that Gestapo act is allowing, Tim Walz allowing that? Is that the Gestapo? See, he just said something and said a broad generalization and didn't actually give any context to what was going on with that story. I'm not exactly sure about it, but he said my high school, like he goes there still. Okay, yeah, it was the high school you went to, but don't say my like you were there. That makes you put in the area or in the situation. You obviously don't know the whole situation because you're just giving a broad generalization of chasing a guy. What if they were chasing him because he was a rapist? What if they were chasing him because he unalived people? What if they were chasing him because he was a PDF file who was also an illegal? So it doesn't matter what they say. It's the context and the reasoning behind it. And that's what Jesse's not giving. Why don't you give the context of the story of why they were chasing that man?
So they come to my school. They use tear gas and pepper spray at the school. Now, here's a question I have, Piers. My Uncle Emo fought in World War I, and he was gassed. He came home, but his life was ruined. He could never do anything. What did they do? They outlawed it. Gas using chemical weapons became a war crime. Why is it that you can't use them on your enemy, but you're allowed to use them on your own people? That is.
I don't think that they were talking about tear gas, Jesse. You're reaching, buddy. You're reaching a lot. They weren't talking about tear gas.
It's always been. Where is the media on this? Using chemical weapons against our own people, which is in essence a war crime.
Well, I think I wouldn't describe the gas used by ICE agents as chemical weapons. I mean, that infers weapons of mass
tear
destruction.
gas. They're spraying people from 6 inches away right in their face.
What's the difference between that and mace then? So then you need to say that mace needs to be outlawed, if that's your argument, Jesse. He goes in these crazy libtard tyrant rants, and they don't make any sense. They have no substance to them. They have no logic behind them. All he does is says, I was a war vet, so you have to listen to me, and I'm right no matter what I say. Even though Piers is like sitting there, I'm not the biggest fan of Piers Morgan, but Piers Morgan has literally just told him, tear gas isn't like what you're talking about, dude. It's not the same thing. That's what's wrong. These people use fear tactics and fear-mongering to try and make you think something than what it really is.
I can't use that in war. I wasn't allowed to carry tear gas or any type of chemical weapon in war. It's banned from war. It's considered a war crime. You can't use it against your enemy, but you can use it against your own people. Doesn't something ring wrong there for you, Piers?
Well, a lot rang wrong about what was going on in Minnesota, and I'm very glad that it has been resolved, at least for now. And I think
it
Donald
hasn't
Trump
been resolved.
Well, no, not
Piers,
completely, but
nothing's been resolved.
No, I understand.
We have 2 dead people here.
Yeah,
2 people were killed by the Gestapo here.
Oh, the Gestapo, yeah, not 2 people that were impeding on law enforcement agents doing their job. Literally federal law enforcement agents doing their job. That's not what happened. No, this was the Gestapo just picking random people out of the crowd saying, oh, see you later. No, dude, that's not what happened. See, there's context to the story. What you're not saying is the lady hit the ICE agent and the ICE agent's life was in danger. So there you go. It doesn't make any sense where these these tirades come from these libtards like this. I don't get it.
Yeah, I understand. And those investigations are ongoing, but at least the ICE activity that was going on and the way it was being conducted has been removed from Minnesota, which is a good thing. And I thought what happened was appalling. And I said so at the time. Let me ask you about Iran and your view of this war.
Well, here's how I feel about it. There's a simple thing as a leader, and you know this having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this.
If you're not a proponent of war, then what makes you... I don't understand how that makes somebody a coward if they didn't go to war. And I don't think he actually dodged the draft. I think he had a legitimate excuse, kind of like Joe Biden did, but nobody ever says anything about that, so...
A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own? So I'm calling right now for Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son. You know, after all, he's had 3 wives, he's had kids by each wife, and nobody's ever served in the military. To my knowledge, a Trump in the last 100 years has never done military service. Well, Barron...
What does that matter to you, and why are you calling for some 20-year-old kid who's never done nothing wrong to you? You're acting like this kid's, like, done you harm. What a piece of shit for this. I don't care, Jesse Ventura. You are a piece of shit for calling out this kid like that.
You can change that. Enlist in the United States military right now. Do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. I want to see a Trump in the military. Everybody in my family has served, so I think I can say that with all due confidence. Come on, Trumps. Don't just reap the benefits of this free world. Somebody put on the uniform, and that's you, Barron. And I heard the excuse that Barron might be too tall. David Robinson served on active duty. He was 7 feet tall before he ever went to the San Antonio Spurs basketball team. David Robinson went to the United States Navy Military Academy. He's one of my officers, not directly, but he would have been.
Okay.
Oh, see, this is what they do. He's one of my officers, not directly, but he would have been. Then he wasn't your officer, dude. He wasn't your officer. This is where they do. This is what they do. They try and put emotional ties to situations to try and make you feel a certain way. No, dude. David Robinson wasn't your officer, Jesse. You just made that up. Is that stolen valor? Huh? Is that stolen valor? Saying somebody was your officer, and then in the same sentence saying they weren't your officer? These dudes are crazy. The fact that he's calling Barron out like this is extremely pathetic of him. Somebody who's not a proponent of war should say, no, don't send your kids to war. You need to keep your kids home. Don't do it. But no, he's phony.
Look, it's one argument that a Trump should serve. That's perfectly reasonable argument to make. A lot of people feel that way, but it doesn't change what's going on in Iran. What is your view of this war? Do you think it's a legitimate war? Many people think that the Iranian regime has been the instrument of terror through the Middle East for 40 years.
Of course they have been. Of course they have been, Piers. But wait a minute. Trump then calls you guys NATO cowards. Wait a minute. NATO is set up to protect. That means that if a NATO country is attacked, they will all join together to repel it. It does.
Bro, no, he's calling NATO cowards for other reasons.
Doesn't go in reverse. It doesn't mean if one of the NATO countries starts a war that all the others have to join in. That ain't part of it.
Why? These people start wars and we have to join in all the time. And I don't understand it, dude. I just don't get it. These people act like we have to fucking bend the knee to NATO, but NATO doesn't have to ever do anything for us.
The deal is protection, not aggression.
And mind you, I'm not a proponent of this war. I don't like it. I think this was one thing that Trump should not have done.
And we started this war, and then he's calling you guys a bunch of cowards because you won't come in and help him. Well, why didn't he talk to you beforehand? And second of all, that isn't what the mission is. The mission is to protect the countries if they're attacked, not to go on the offense and do the attacking.
Yeah, but to be fair, when you have a country chanting death to America for the past 40, 50 years, at that point, you can't wait for them to attack you, because if you wait for them to attack you, it might be too late.
Okay, but do you think America was justified in joining Israel in the attack on Iran?
No.
Why not?
Absolutely not. Because we started the war. I'm not for starting any war. We fired the first shot. Plain and simple. You want to put it in Rambo terms? We drew first blood.
Many would argue, of those who support the war, that Iran had drawn a lot of blood through this regime for a very long time. They had supported and propped up. Well, hang on, Jesse. They had armed groups like Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah for decades. They had wreaked utter havoc, drawing enormous amounts of blood, and that actually the reason America and Israel had to deal with them now was that they were imminently going to get a nuclear weapon and may well use it. What do you say to that?
Well, here's what I say. Let's get the real history in. You know, I listen to people like Congressman Lawler in New York. They all love to go back to 1979, the day the Ayatollahs took over. They conveniently don't go back to when I was alive. I'm a little older than them. Let's go back to 1953, shall we? When Iran had a Democratic elected president, the United States didn't like him. We pulled a coup d'etat, and what did we do? We stuck the authoritarian dictator, the Shah, in power. That's when the I Hate America started, was way back in the 50s when we interfered in their democratic elections. But how convenient we are that we forget that. Then in 1979, what took place? The Ayatollahs took over, who were probably worse than the Shah. But let's remember, the hatred of America was started by America. It was not started by the Iranians.
That's not true, because we can't get into other people's minds and make them think how they think. How they think is how they think. So if they hate us, that's not on us, that's on them. If you hate somebody, that's on you, that's not on the person. That's what Jesse's not understanding, right? He's taking one too many chair shots to the brain, right? So what he's not understanding is that if you have hatred for somebody, that's on you. That's not on them.
Interfered in their government way back in the 50s and overturned their democratic elected president, and then the dictatorship started with the Shah and now went to the Ayatollahs, and here we are today. But I'd like for Congressman Lawler to at least try to go back in history from before he was born to see what could have occurred, and that the United States was the person that caused the hatred between the two countries.
You know, Jesse, I know you're very scathing of Trump now. There was a time when you were on more friendly terms. Here's a clip from you both at WrestleMania 20.
You know what? I think that we may need a wrestler in the White House in 2008.
When you look at that, Jesse, I mean, that was 12, 13 years ago, I think. Trump has also been made a WWE Hall of Famer, which I know has angered you.
Yep.
How do you feel now looking back?
Of course he would be angry about Trump being a WWE Hall of Famer. How freaking pathetic have you become, Jesse? Wow, dude. You're upset. There's all kinds of people in the WWE Hall of Fame that don't wrestle, that just have to do it. That Cyndi Lauper, she's never wrestled, and she was a big part of the WWF back in the days. This dude is absolutely insane. If he's not calling for every celebrity that's never had a match, never wrestled, to not be in the WWE Hall of Fame, then he's just lying, and he's just being biased, and he's showing it his true TDS.
Get that clip.
I feel that simply I was doing my job. I was doing what I was asked to do at the WWE. Trump being a Hall of Famer is a tragedy. This guy has never been in the ring. I got a good friend.
It doesn't matter. He had an infamous storyline with him, Bobby Lashley, Vince McMahon, and Umaga, where Vince McMahon had to cut his hair off at WrestleMania. Like, bro, whether you like it or not, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. Get a fucking life, you loser.
Ken Patera, Olympian, first man to overhead press 500 pounds, 25 years in the wrestling business. Kenny Patera is not in the Hall of Fame. Donald Trump does not belong in the Wrestling Hall.
Well, let's be fair. The person you just named, I've never heard of, my dude. Never heard of him. Watched wrestling since I was a kid. Never heard of this guy once. Donald Trump is infamously in a storyline with Bobby Lashley, Umaga, and Vince McMahon, where Vince McMahon had to cut his hair off. I'm sorry that you don't like him, and you don't like the fact he's in the Hall of Fame where you started your career. Too fucking bad, dude. This dude is the biggest crybaby ever.
Hall of Fame. He never earned it. You know what I had to do to get in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame at one point in my
I had to move to the Baja to serve 2 terms in Nam just to get into the Hall of Fame.
career? I wrestled 63 consecutive nights in a row. That's how you get in the Hall of Fame. When I was
Oh, 63 nights in a row. Nowadays, wrestlers are wrestling like 230 nights a year, you fucking chump.
referring to putting a wrestler in the White House, I was talking about me, not him.
Really? That was a bit ambiguous.
No, you were talking about Trump. You knew what you were doing. You were talking about Trump, dude, which is why you were there skating with him with the microphone. You were talking about him. Now you just backpedaled because he became a Republican. That's what it is. You guys didn't like that he became a Republican, so you developed this TDS in your mind.
Absolutely. I was the former governor of Minnesota. I'm the only real former wrestler. I don't include him. He's only in the Hall of Fame because he stopped an investigation against Vince McMahon, a sexual stuff.
Do you intend to run again?
Are we being serious right now? What? Dude, you could tell by his head movement. Watch. When he's just sitting here, you could tell by his head movement, the way he's shaking his head like this, that he's not all the way there, that he's had way too many chair shots.
For governor,
Look at him.
look
Look at it shaking.
I don't necessarily intend to run again, but I'm working on something that could send me straight to Washington and go face to face with this guy.
Really? What, you would run for
Plans
president?
may be in the works.
I mean, he can't run for president again, so what would that involve?
Well, you'll have to find out. Wait and
Oh, what a lame. What are you, a girl, dude? Just tell him what you plan on doing. Who gives a shit? You're not nobody that important anymore, Mr. Ventura. We're sorry. You never really were that important. Just go back to the Baja.
see. I'm not going to spill it here.
You're not going to crash
But
the...
I'll put it to you this way. Wait. Piers, I'll put it to you this way. We withstood the onslaught of the Gestapo in Minnesota. Well, I was taught in war to do this. You ensure that your backyard is secure. That's the first thing you do. Well, Minnesota's now secure.
Okay, so what basically Jesse Ventura is calling for right here, guys, is a civil war. He's calling for a civil war. Okay, he can say whatever he wants, but he's talking about war terms. When you're at war, right? You could secure your backyard. Now he's saying Minnesota's secure. Now it's time to go to war. So he's asking for a civil war. These people are fucking deranged.
Repelled the onslaught from Trump. Now it's time for us to go on the offense. So maybe it's time to send the Navy SEAL to Washington. Maybe it's time for a showdown between the Vietnam veteran and the draft dodger.
The Navy, you're going to send the Navy SEAL that Trump's in charge of to Washington to do what? What are you going to do?
Do you actually mean a physical confrontation? Or?
No, But if he wants it, he's in the Hall of Fame. Let's both get in the ring.
You're in the Hall of Fame of a wrestling company that is known that wrestling. I'm not saying that it's not real, but all the bumps taken aren't real. The punches are barely real, right? You do get hurt, but you get hurt for other reasons because you're jumping on a mat, right? You're not going to get in there and have a fight with Trump in a wrestling match. It's predetermined.
I mean, there is a UFC.
After all, he's in the Hall of he's in the Hall of Fame, isn't he?
Right. I mean, there is
Even
a
though he's never ever had a match.
Right. There is a UFC whole event going on imminently at the White House. Maybe they could extend it and have you against Trump.
Do you think he'd have the guts to do that? Are you kidding me?
Well, when he got
this guy.
When he got shot,
wait a minute,
Jesse,
Piers,
to be fair to Trump.
Wait a minute, Piers.
To be fair to Trump, when he got shot,
I'm going to tell you.
When he got shot, he got back up and said, fight.
Oh, yeah, right. You ever hear of a blade job?
Oh, so now he's accusing him of blading. Okay. See, this is where the TDS goes. All right.
Anyway.
A blade? What, you think it was fake?
Anyway, I don't know. Where's his scar today?
Somebody died, literally, sitting behind him.
Right. Look at it. Look at his hand movement. Look at his head movement. And you guys are taking advice and having similar ideology as this guy. It's insane. Look at him. He is completely unhinged. Somebody literally died. How did he get a blade job? I don't. This is more TDS derangement.
I don't know. You know, come on, Piers. You're going to tell me this guy's a big hero now?
I thought that day he was.
That's what you're going to tell me?
That day he was.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, well, then he accomplished what he wanted out of you guys.
No, I think.
How pathetic, bro. How sad and pathetic do you have to be that you can't just acknowledge, hey, somebody got shot and good for him for getting up and telling his people to still fight while somebody got killed behind him. Jesse, you are shallow and pathetic for this.
You can be heroic on one day and you can be less heroic on others. But if you ask me, was he heroic when he got shot? Yeah, and I think those who try to pretend he wasn't actually shot or anything, it's ridiculous.
You're right. You know what I feel bad about was that if he'd have joined us in Vietnam, we might have won, huh?
No.
He could have put us. Why did he run and hide when he could have joined us and led us to victory?
I don't think anything would have changed the fortunes of the United States in that war.
Yeah, probably not, considered he called us all suckers, didn't he?
What would you say to Trump if you had a chance to speak to him?
I'd prefer not to speak with him.
Of course, you'd rather just keep your TDS and just keep going. So if you spoke with them, maybe you might be like how, what's his name was? Was it Bill O'Reilly or what? Not Bill O'Reilly. The Late Show dude who went and had dinner with him. And now he's like, he's not as bad as I made him seem. That's what it is. And that's what's wrong with these people. It's so hard to have a conversation with somebody like Jesse. And I know a lot of people like that because their mindset is just stuck in their ways, and that's it.
I don't have really. What would I say to him?
I don't know.
He's. To me.
You just said you want to go to Washington D.C. to talk to him. I don't. This is what that you have your opportunity to say what you want to say.
He has no courage. He never has. I'll tell you what he is, Piers. Everybody knows these people. You're with a group of guys, and there's always one guy who will start the fight and then hold your coat. That's Donald Trump. He'll start the fight, but he'll hold your coat, and then the next day he'll tell everybody how tough he was.
Jesse Ventura, it's great to see you've lost none of your fighting spirit in the many.
Yeah, he might not have lost his fighting spirit, but he's definitely lost his mind. What he's saying about Trump is just insane. The fact that he's calling out Barron Trump is even more insane to me. I'm sorry, that's pathetic. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also, please make sure to hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe. smash the notification, and make sure to share this page with a friend. Have a good one. Peace.
We'll be right back.